What is up, my brothers and sisters, my agents of respect? It's your boy Trey Johnson back with another episode of the No Disrespect But podcast. Before we get started, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Always feel free to comment, but please make sure you keep those comments respectful. And if you're interested in supporting your favorite podcaster, yours truly, your boy's Cash App will be in the episode description. And so appreciate those of y'all that drop a little change for your boy. Um, and I was reading something. It's like, is it a hobby or is it something you want to do? And I think I'm pushing to it being less of a hobby and more of something I want to do. So um, more to come on that in the next coming months. But anyways, today's episode, and I promise you guys that I would get one in this Friday. Double up this week. We had one on Tuesday. Talked about a few things there. Talked about the Saints quarterback situation and our mood swings of our fan base, and we uh, had another one today because Kellen Moore didn't show up to Shador Sanders' pro day, and apparently that means that Saints aren't interested in all that type of stuff. But today isn't about them. It's about my favorite sport, which is basketball. And if you're a fan of basketball, especially collegiate basketball, this is the weekend. March Madness has essentially come to a close. We are in April, and that means we are in the Final Four and getting ready to crown a national champion on both the women's and men's side. Uh, Women's college basketball actually getting kicked off tonight. The four teams that made it: South Carolina, UCLA, Texas, and my favorite team, UConn. So they all made it. Three number ones. And then, of course, UConn was the number two seed in their region and won in the Elite Eight against the number one seed in that region, USC, who, of course, they were without Juju Watkins, phenom, sophomore, and um, been balling her first 2 years in college basketball. And we were looking forward to that matchup between USC and UConn and Paige Beckers and Juju Watkins. And unfortunately, Juju injured her ACL and she was not able to play. And UConn essentially just ran away with that game against USC. So technically, I guess an upset, but without a Juju, I don't think anyone uh, will review that matchup and that win for UConn as an upset versus USC. So three number ones and one number two seed. And so our matchups are going to be, um, let me make sure I got it right. Let me make sure I got it right. So yeah, UConn is going to be playing UCLA. That's later tonight. And South Carolina is going to be playing Texas, which is later. That's going to be the first game of the Final Four on the women's side. And look, I know Texas got one on South Carolina in the regular season, and so everybody was like, "Oh, like it's a new king or new queen in the SEC in regards to women's basketball." And South Carolina proceeded to follow that up with, another conference championship and a win in the tournament. So they get to meet each other again, and the Texas has been formidable. They've been able to find ways to win games. Booker has been one of their better players. I think averaging 16 points per game or something like that. And um, you know, it almost seems like whenever they needed a big shot, they got the ball to her, and she was able to make some things happen. And so it's not a surprise that Texas has gotten to this point. This is their first Final Four since 2003, if I'm not mistaken. And so they have a chance to make history. When you go that long without, an opportunity to win a national championship and you finally make it, you want to make the most of it. Um, but unfortunately, I think they ran up against probably the best team from top to bottom in this tournament, and that being the University of South Carolina, and coached by the GOAT, Dawn Staley, and what she's been able to do to turn that program around and turning them into a national powerhouse, a you know a premier title contender year in and year out. I think she's gotten South Carolina to the point where UConn has been under Coach Gino, where Tennessee was under Coach Summit. I think Coach Staley has gotten South Carolina to where they're in those conversations as a program. And I think that's a testament to her leadership, her ability to recruit, and her ability to develop, especially in this era of transfer portal and NIL, and for her to remain, especially at the top of her game and keep her program consistently at the top and always vying for a chance to have a national championship. And in this case, they have a chance to go back to back. And this would be their third in 4 years, if I'm not mistaken. It would be their third in 4 years, with the only other winner in that span of time being LSU, led by Angel Reese, of course. Um, so they have a chance to chase something too. So yeah, while Texas is chasing their history and trying to make their stamp in the new SEC, the old SEC, so to speak, being South Carolina, uh, I think they're here to stay, and I think they want to make a point. And so when I think about that first matchup today, look, I'm gonna go with South Carolina on this one. That program was made for championships. That program was made to always be in the championship game, unless by some act of God or a monster performance, like the one we saw a few years ago when, Caitlin Clark went bananas and on them. But I think many would say, had Iowa not won that game and USC won that game instead, and they were the favorites to win that game, right? I think USC repeats as champions at that point in time. And they would be at this point vying for their fourth in a row, if I'm not mistaken, if that's the way the numbers work. Yeah, they'd be vying for their fourth in a row, which we've seen in this sport before. And, I think Coach Staley and her program is due for a generational run like that. But that didn't happen. But again, a chance to get three in a 4-year cycle is truly amazing. And thinking about the players she has coming, I mean, um, Foley, I think I was pronounced it like Malaysia Foley. I think I pronounced that correctly. I'm sorry if I misspoke, but I mean, she's coming off the bench, and I think she's their best player in terms of the way she could put the ball in the basket, the way she just changes the energy in the game every time she comes in. And so I know for the next 2 years, she's definitely going to be a building block for the Gamecock program. And I'm expecting big things from her and some of these other players that they're bringing in. Like, TreJuanJohnson will be a junior next year as well. So they still have a lot of really good players. So there's no reason why South Carolina won't be in this position again. And so when I think of this matchup, I think, South Carolina just has maybe a little bit too much. And look, the last couple games, they've been in some trouble. They have been in some trouble. But that championship pedigree has shown itself time and time again for them. And I don't think there's many teams that can beat them. I don't think there's many teams that can beat them twice in the season. And I definitely think there's many teams that can beat them in the Final Four. And at this point in time, I don't think Texas is one of those teams right now. I could be wrong. Um, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on Longhorns women's basketball. Usually, when it comes to women's basketball, or college basketball, I should say, I try to watch the teams that I really like. And I do the same thing on the men's side. Like, I'll watch the teams that I really like. So that's why March Madness is always really cool for me, because I get to watch some teams that I haven't really been able to watch throughout the year, but we're able to make it to the tournament. And so I haven't watched a ton of Texas, even though they've been one of the better teams in the nation. But always played close attention to South Carolina, paid close attention to UCLA, paid close attention to UConn, and it's no surprise to me they are three of the four teams that have made it. And one could argue that again, if Juju isn't hurt, they're probably beating UConn and they're in the mix. And we're talking about four number one seeds. That includes a phenomenal athlete and talent like a Juju Watkins. So I hope she shakes back, because Final Four needs her. Um, I think the game needs her. She's arguably the best player in the nation, and I can't wait till she gets healthy, and to be able to be on this stage. But again, got South Carolina over Texas. Now the next game, and speaking of a player that young in her or early in her young career battled some injuries, and there was a lot of hype around her, and having to overcome those injuries and remind people who the hell she is, and that being Paige Buckets, or Paige Beckers, but I call her Paige Buckets because that's what she gets on a nightly basis when she wants to. And so for her to be in this position and leading UConn back to a Final Four, they were there last year, lost to Caitlin Clark's Iowa Hawkeyes, and it was a game that went down to the wire. There's an opportunity for her to capture something that she has not yet captured in her amazing career at UConn. And when we talk about the greats, they're, they won. They won championships. And so, she's definitely already in that conversation just with her natural ability. But, you want to see a player of that caliber win a championship. You never want to see them go out not having one. Does it mean they're any less of a talent? No, but you just love to see that on their resume. And so, leading this UConn team, AZ Fudd, Sarah Strong, who's a phenomenal freshman in her own right and doing her thing. I mean, you know, I remember the days where the bigs, especially on the women's side, they were truly bigs. Like, no, we're not about to shoot 3 pointers and all that type of stuff. You'll have a few that came out over the years that did that, but the way she can beat you in all phases, in the paint, from the outside, like back to the basket, driving to the basket, uh, spot up shooting, those types of things. Like, she's been phenomenal to watch over this season. And much like, South Carolina, like I said, they've built a winning program and a tradition, and they just always seem to have the next group of great players that's going to lead their program. I think you can argue that Sarah Strong is one of those players for UConn. And maybe that UConn is kind of getting back to where they used to be, where, you had uh, a really deep team where your backups this year are going to be your stars next year, and your superstars this year, if they still have eligibility left, are going to be even better the following year and being able to consistently put you in a position to win a national championship. Now, excuse me, they're going up against a really good UCLA team. Lauren Betts is phenomenal, one of their better players and one of the best players in the nation. And so she's going to be a handful. Like I talked about Sarah Strong and being a freshman, but Lauren Betts is a seasoned vet, and so I'm going to be interested in that matchup and how that goes, because at least from what I watched of UConn, they don't really have a ton of depth at that center position that can give you what Sarah Strong gives you on a nightly basis. And so, like, if a Lauren Betts can get you in foul trouble, what does Coach Gino, what type of lineups does he use? Um, how does he counteract that? When Sarah needs a rest, how do you counteract that? Do you go smaller for Lauren Betts is in the game and allow her to wreck? So that's going to be an interesting chess match just to see how the lineups go. But UCLA, you know, they're a really good team too. Again, they were a number one seed going into this tournament. They beat a really good LSU team to get here. They beat them in the Elite Eight. They beat a really good LSU team to get to the Final Four and a chance for a national title. And I think they want to take advantage of this opportunity, as they should. And I will say this: look, the one thing or the one knock that I've always had with UConn and even Paige Beckers during her tenure is I think sometimes there's a lot of um, revenue sharing, I guess, and with revenue being the basketball. Um, um, and you know, I feel like when you have a good group of really good players, sometimes you try to make sure everybody feels good and everybody feels like um, they get their pound of flesh or their fair share of the basketball and the opportunity to make great plays. And I think to that extent, I think sometimes Paige Beckers forgets who she is. Phenomenal player and a phenomenal teammate. I'm not saying that she needs to be, I guess, selfish and just don't and just not pass the ball to her teammates and get them involved. But I do think at this stage in her career, please understand that your chances are running out. Your chances of being a national champion are running out, and you are the team's best player. And in moments like that, you have to step up. You have to take the initiative. You can't let the game come to you, if that makes sense. Sometimes you just have to take the game over. We saw that in the Sweet 16. She scored 40 points. In the Elite Eight, I felt like she was a little bit passive, and a lot of that was because I think Juju was hurt. you kind of got out to a big lead, but when USC started to really march back, I think got the game within six, you saw Paige just go on a tear and go after it, and she ended up with 31 points. But UCLA isn't a team because they're now at full strength. USC was without Juju. I think if Juju was playing, you would have saw that page uh, right away. But so you're going to need that right away against UCLA. Fudd, hey, you got to be on a little bit early. We can't wait till the fourth quarter for you to start hitting shots. We're going to need some shots early. Obviously, Sarah Strong is going to have to stay out of foul trouble. She's going to have to be able to you know, put UCLA in situations where Lauren Betts might be in foul trouble. We know that UConn can run the floor, maybe utilize that a little bit more, and maybe kind of wear this UCLA team out. And so, look, I think UConn's going to win this matchup, and I think it's going to set up South Carolina versus UConn national championship. And you know, I won't go into grave detail, but I think UConn wins this one. I think um, when you think of a player like Paige Beckers and her final chance to win the championship here, I think that she's going to do what it takes to win that matchup and to win her matchups against a really good South Carolina defense. I know Raven Johnson is going to take on that assignment. In last year's national championship, she took that assignment personally with Caitlin Clark and did a really good job. And I would assume she would do the same thing with Paige Beckers. But look, I think it'll be a really good game. I think UConn and South Carolina, they tend to have really good matchups, and they have over the years. I think you're talking about two of the three best coaches in my lifetime, being Gino Auriemma and Dawn Staley. And of course, may she rest in peace, Pat Summitt. Those are the top three that I've ever experienced in my lifetime watching not just women's college basketball, but college basketball in general. And so these are the matchups, right? Like two of the best teams led by two of the best coaches ever. This is what it's all about. This is championship basketball. And so look, and part of this, I'm a UConn fan, right? I grew up cheering for UConn. Um, and so I'm gonna just be a homer and I'm gonna stick with them to win this game. And Paige Beckers gets to hoist one. Gino finally gets one, another one in the win column after a drought. And as we always do. So there you have it. Uh, I have UConn winning the women's college basketball Division One, I guess I should say, national championship. Now let's go over to the men's side. Now, men's side is hard for me. One, I never want to see Auburn do well in anything, but for them to make it to the Final Four, I gotta give them their credit. I mean, Coach Pearl has done a phenomenal job over the years. Obviously, they were starting to get a stigma that they couldn't get it done after just tough loss after tough loss after tough loss, and his guys have rallied, and they have made it to the Final Four. I think it's the second time under Coach Pearl they've made it to the Final Four, and they want an opportunity to win a national championship. And they happen to go up against Florida, who I think is one of the best teams in the nation. Obviously, they've shown that. This is the first time we've had all four number one seeds make it since 2008. That was the year Kansas beat Memphis. Obviously, we remember the Mario Chalmers shot to send to overtime. So, you know, this is great. Again, we're getting the best of the best. I know we haven't had the Cinderellas. I miss the Cinderellas too, but it's a new age in college basketball. The guys who led the Cinderellas, they're no longer there. They're with some of these Power Five schools, like a Walter Clayton Jr., who's leading the Florida team, was a star at Iona, and then it ended up transferring to Florida. So um, this isn't surprising at all just to see what they're doing. So, shout out to both of these programs. I mean, I wasn't really familiar with Florida's game. Like, I heard great things about them throughout the season. One of my best friends and fraternity brothers, Brandon, he's a huge Florida fan, but he and I never really chopped it up to talk about them because we've both been so busy with work and everything like that. But I got to watch them a little bit during the tournament, which is again which is one of the beautiful things about the NCAA tournament is when you haven't had an opportunity to watch a lot of these programs and these young men and women from the women's standpoint, you get an opportunity to really look at them, and then it's like, oh snap, like these dudes really good. Let me go do some more research on these players because now obviously they're getting ready. Some of them are getting ready to go to the pros, so you want to be ready for that. So I mean, they are a really good team. Florida is, and Auburn's no joke either. Like in my lifetime, if you told me this was a college football national championship, I'd believe you. If you told me this was college baseball, I'd believe you. I never in my wildest dreams thought we'd be talking about the SEC from a general standpoint, having two teams in the Final Four. Now, I know the commissioner is kind of might be a little bit upset that his two teams have to play each other to see who wins the national championship. I bet he would have loved to have an all SEC national championship, which has been customary at some points in times during the football season. But you know, you get an opportunity for a championship game appearance in the SEC in basketball. Like that is crazy. Like I remember growing up, obviously Florida was really good, LSU in those years. So you, those were really the only two that I remember growing up that legit had chances to win a national championship every year. But you had Florida, you had what 14 teams from the SEC make it this year. Arkansas had a chance to make it. Alabama had a chance to make it. It's just crazy the amount of teams and high quality teams in basketball. I just never thought I'd see it, and so it's cool being in SEC country to see something like that. But you know, unfortunately, somebody has to win or lose, or somebody has to lose, I guess. And it's even though I'm not a Alabama basketball you know diehard fan, like I enjoy watching them. I'm a Duke fan, and we'll talk about that in just a second. I can't cheer for Auburn in anything, uh, like anything. Like I don't want them to succeed at all. Uh like I was upset when my girl, I'm trying to think of her name now. Hold on. Like yeah, like when SUNY went to Auburn, like I was devastated because I was like, now, at least from a collegiate standpoint, I got root for you to fail. Like when you get to the Olympics, is USA, USA all day, right? But like I was like, dang man, that sucks. But with that in mind, like I can't openly uh root and hope that Auburn wins. And I just think again, Florida has just been a really good team. Like, again, I heard a ton about their dominance this year and just hadn't had a chance to watch them until the tournament started. And everything that I was told about them and everything I had heard about them, uh, they've shown it to be true. They have been very dominant in this tournament. They have been able to close games. When games have been tight, they've been able to withstand runs and just put games away. And I think they do that again against Auburn. I think um, they win the de facto SEC championship game, I guess you can call it, and then secure themselves a bid in a national championship. And so I got Florida in that spot. Now, where it's really hard for me is Duke versus Houston. Um, of course, I'm a diehard Duke fan, and we'll get to that in a second. But excuse me, I'm a huge fan of Coach Kelvin Sampson. Like I love what he does. Obviously, being an African American and seeing someone like him rise into the ranks of the coaching profession and in athletics and be as dominant as he's been, especially during his tenure at Houston, like it's pretty cool to see. And like you feel good about that. And you wanna root for him. You want them to be successful and obviously make them to the Final Four. He'll be able to hang a banner. But of course, Coach Sampson, like he wants one. Like, of course he does. He wants one with this group of guys. They've been through a lot, and to have an opportunity to make it, to have an opportunity to make it to a national championship and to win a national championship would be phenomenal and amazing, not just for that program, but for that city, for Coach Sampson. I think for, again, people, coaches that look like us. Um, and what they're trying to aspire to be. I think that's a big deal. And so I'm like, damn, like I would really love to see him win. Like I will say this, the winner of this game is who I'm rooting for in the national championship. Um, because again, Houston has a really good team. Like they really do. And they can arguably win the whole thing. And honestly, if they were playing anybody but Duke, I would pick them to win the whole thing. But I can't go against my Dukies, man. Like I was born to be a Blue Devil fan. Like my dad's a diehard Duke Blue Devil fan. That's all I've known from a college basketball standpoint. I grew up wanting to go and play basketball for Duke University. Me and one of my good friends, Ramil, he was a North Carolina fan. So we used to always get into it at Salem Lutheran. Like it it's in me. The same way Alabama football is in me. Same way New Orleans Saints is in like it's in me. Like San Antonio Spurs, it's in me. That's the same way I feel about Duke basketball. And we talked about succession and Coach John Schneider and Coach John Shire and how he, took over. And some felt like he was just given the job instead of actually doing a really productive search. And he was handpicked by the king, being Coach K. And he's done well. He's won. I think he's won more games than anyone in this span, like in the same span of time or in that number of years that he's coached. And now, man, it's time. Coach K got us five. It's time for you to get the next one. It's time for you to start adding to your legacy as the head basketball coach at Duke. And if it's anyone, I mean, I don't think I believed as much when he first got hired. I mean, I knew about the guy, of course. I knew him as a player. I knew what he did as a recruiter for us and getting some really top-notch talent to the program. But one thing I've loved about Coach is that he's going back to the old roots of Duke basketball. Yeah, do we have a few one and dones? Yeah, we do, but we have guys, some veteran guys that can come in and play some high-level basketball for us. And so, when some of you young guys, like Cooper Flag obviously is leading our program and is the top guy, but having a Tyrese Proctor does help, does it not? When he can come in and make 7 threes in a big game, or when Cooper gets hurt and he and Kneppel go off together. But of course, having a Tyrese Proctor being that common presence, so to speak, for your program and having that veteran leadership, it helps. It works wonders. Look at the teams that are here right now. They have veteran leadership. They have. That is how you win in college basketball. We love the one and done phenomenons. We love all that, but you win with veteran leadership. And I'm so happy that Duke has gone back to their roots and have an opportunity to win their first national championship in 10 long years. And I'm ready for it. And so look, I love Coach Sampson. I love the Houston program, what they've done over the years, but I ain't going up. I ain't going against my boys. I'm going for succession. And it's time for succession to get to a national championship. And sorry, Ghost, but guess what? My guys are going to take care of those Gators as well. And we're winning the national championship. It's our time. It's our time. There are a lot of good teams. I think all four deserve to be here. All four are deserving to be national champions. And I think you can say that when they're all the top seeds. Like it's not like somebody got lucky, whatever, and had a few upsets. These are the top seeds. Nobody's getting an easy win. You can't tell me that it's going to be an easy win, an easy matchup for any of these four teams. But my guys are going to come out on top. We are going to plant the flag. We are doing this for our guys. We're doing this for our freshmen. We're doing this for our upperclassmen. We are doing this for succession, baby. And succession gets his first championship this year. So again, and I ain't gonna lie to you, these are my biases. Yeah, I'm trying to give you some knowledge too. I'm not just, just going blindly for my guys and saying and acting like they're just gonna be better than everybody. But UConn and Duke are winning national championships this year. It's time. It's time. And then the next couple of years we can talk about Wimby and Saints and all that type of stuff. But for now, I get to get one in college. I get to get one in college basketball, and then hopefully Bama does what the hell they got to do next year and give me one in college football. And hopefully, ET can give me a Southern Conference championship next year if things get approved. But I think I think my teams are gonna fail, bro. That's just me. Of course, a part of it, a lot. I would say 75% of this is bias. If you look at my brackets that I made, like if I made 10 brackets apiece for women's and men's basketball, like eight of my brackets had UConn winning, nine of my brackets had Duke winning on the men's side. Like I'm not coming up off this prediction because I can't see a world where my two favorite basketball programs, collegiate basketball programs, aren't national champions year in and year out. So there you have it. The UConn Huskies, the Duke Blue Devils, they will be your national champions as told by your self-proclaimed sports guru right here. But the enjoy the matchup. Women's starts tonight. The men start tomorrow, and then of course the women's national championship game is on Sunday. Men's national championship game is on Monday. So a lot of basketball being played over the next 4 days. Uh, Speaking of, man, my boss he had tickets to the Final Four, and he didn't tell me. I mean, I probably was gonna stay home anyway, but it would have been nice, right? Like you would have not, it would have been nice to get an invitation. I probably would have declined, want to stay home with the missus, make sure she's doing well post surgery and that type of stuff. But like, could have asked me. But, anyways, no hard feelings. Maybe next time. Anyways, let's end this show right here. And as I always say, if there's anything I said that offended anyone, that's okay. It's a good thing, right? It's an opportunity for me to learn, and it's an opportunity for you to teach me. All I ask is that you keep it respectful. Peace.